Thank you again for joining me, Stacey J, on Pop of Genius Urban Politics. It's been a while since I posted in a few days, and today's video is lengthy, but it's very informative. There's a lot of information in there. And this video is called 666, the RH star seed and transhumans. This video is a culmination of many deep dives, and it's going to expose some things that are related to the upcoming New World Order that will be upon us shortly due to this Iran-Israel-United States conflict. Also, due to some of the espionage that was occurring with Jeffrey Epstein and his relation to the Israel Mossad, and also in regards to transhumanism, his delving into that, Nephilim, and the RH negative bloodline. They are called the starseed. In the picture, if you notice that I have a few notable men, there's one person that is not recognizable, and he has like an auburn reddish ginger colored hair. Well, that, my friends, is possibly an image of what the Antichrist could possibly look like. Not for sure, but AI provided an image of what these people look like. And we do know that RH negative blood types are among us, and they are a mixture of human, and then there's the other side of them that is unexplainable. DNA substances that were woven into their biological structure from outside sources unknown. They're thinking that it was probably from these fallen angels that created sons and daughters with human women that were called the Nephilim. It is in my strongest opinion that the mitochondrial DNA of the human origin comes from Africa. However, after the creation of human, there were the fallen angels that were taught in the Bible. These fallen angels did mate with the human. They now still walk among us in our government, in our everyday society. According to Jude, King James Version, Jude, the servant of Jesus Christ and the brother of James, to them that are sanctified by God the Father and preserved in Jesus Christ, and call, mercy unto you. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old, ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men. There was lasciviousness and denying their natural state. They created Nephilim. These Nephilim have evolved over the centuries.
People in the ancient alien sphere or biblical sphere or reptilian sphere, whatever you want to say, will say and point to the fact that no one, not even scientists, can tell us where it comes from. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that if you have a belief system in creation and a divine entity, that something integrated with 15% of the entire global population to create this. I think it's possible. Now, do I think that everybody with this Rh negative blood type has some sort of superhuman powers, or they're connected to something someone else isn't? I don't know. I don't think everyone with the Rh negative blood type is privy to this. I know plenty of people who have told me, I don't have anything happen. I have Rh negative. I know the risk with it. I know the pregnancy risk, and I know how to operate around it. It's not talk of certain people with certain blood types, Rh negative being one of them, that are taken by extraterrestrials, and I do it with quotations, these Nephilim meat sacks, as I like to call them, to create offspring for these fallen entities. It's a possibility. And maybe the blood type makes it easier for that. Because if it does come from a Nephilim origin, it could be that the person that has it, a female vessel, would be able to gestate a Nephilim hybrid easier.
Have you ever heard of the peacock angel? Well, the peacock angel derives from an ancient religion called the Yazidi, and they believe in serving and worshiping an angel that was fallen called the guardian angel, who is a peacock angel. In fact, the ISIS terrorist group targeted them a couple of years ago. They're a marginalized group that worshiped the fallen angel Melek Tawas, or the peacock angel, one of the 7 angels that they believe were fallen from heaven. And this is one of the temples that they practice their faith in. This is a mummy's remains in Egypt. And if you look at it, to me, I feel like their cheekbones in some of these mummies are not human. They're structured very differently. And I found out that there is a particular group of these mummies that have blonde or ginger hair with these types of features, that some of them do test for Rh negative blood types. Not all, but there are a few, which lets me know that some of these are also descendants of Nephilim. Look how similar.
Now, I have to go to the book of Jude, because I'm about to show you in scripture where we were told that everybody out here is not real. Everybody out here is not human. And this blew my mind because I have read this so many times and never saw it until now. So check me out. We go into the book of Jude. Of course, there's only one chapter in the book of Jude. And let's see. Let's start with verse 6. I won't call out the verses, but I'll just read starting at verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Now this is talking about the fallen angels. Okay, it says even as Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's comparing the fallen angels who left heaven, is comparing them to the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. It says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh. This is what the people did. They gave themselves over to fornication, and they, going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. But these, talking about the fallen, they speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts, talking about the fallen, in those things they corrupt themselves. Woe unto them, for they have gone. These are spots in your feast of charity, when they feast with you. Okay, hold on a minute now. What does this say? We're talking about the fallen. Where are the fallen? They are in your feast of charity when they feast with you.
Por aí. Já estão encomendados. Tem que pedir uma pastilha. Já estão encomendados estudos para ele.
To mankind, at least the ones that are here.
Isaac never said eat humans?
Yes. And they need to be, they won't eat a dead human, it has to be alive at the time of the killing. Their preference is children. You know, and we've been told, you shouldn't talk about that. You know, there are other people say, well, you better not talk about the reptilians. Well, you know, bull. You know, why not? According to the Andromedans, they're responsible for 31,712 children disappearing in the last 25 years from the United States. These children were food. And I'm supposed to just shut up and not say anything about it because people don't want to hear it? That's tough. That's tough. You know, Westchester County, in the last 5 years, 3,000 children in Westchester County, New York, have vanished without a trace. Where are they going? Why are we allowing this to happen? And why should people stay in denial about it?
Now, how are they able to do this? How are they able to...
This is an article. Jeffrey Epstein admits to doing stranger things in a type of experiments in the laboratory. It's a whole video. I'm going to play in a little bit. But this article gives you even more detail from STAT. Jeffrey Epstein's tissue samples ignited a furor in the Harvard lab of George Church. 13 years later, the whereabouts of the sex offender's skin cells are a mystery. And this is by a person by the name of Megan Multaney. This was written back in February 24th of this year. It says, among several fridges inside the Harvard Medical School lab of the renowned geneticist George Church is one devoted to housing tubes of human blood and spit destined to have their cellular contents cracked open. The DNA letters read out and posted to the wilds of the open internet eventually. These samples, donated by participants in a personal genome project, can sometimes sit in the lab for years until there's sufficient funding for them to be sequenced, which is why in the summer of 2013, the project's director of research, a young scientist named Matt Ball, was unnerved to learn. A member of the team was pushing to prioritize sequencing one sample that had been in the fridge only a few weeks. The request was unusual enough that Ball went into the records of PGP participants and punched in the ID number on the sample to see what name would come up. At first, it didn't ring a bell, but when Ball Googled the name, quote unquote, Jeffrey Epstein, they discovered the news stories about a man whom dozens of girls had accused of them, a man for whom Florida prosecutors had made the unusual decision to drop local law enforcement's recommendations of charging multiple accounts of unlawful sex with minors in favor of a single solicitation of a prostitution charge. It was that man, a registered offender, assaulting them. And it says that whose blood now sat in the PGB fridge, not from Ball's spot on the bench. This is from their newsletter, Morning Rounds. And it just details how sickening he was in operation of collecting. Can you imagine? You have a daughter, you have a niece, you have a granddaughter, and he is collecting your girl's private DNA without your consent. Okay, and really without their consent. It is so unnerving to know that there is such a deep, dark world that is helping to support many of the very wealthy and elite people that are in our government. They are over our money. They are over our military. Okay? They're over our children's education. They're over our society and the laws that are passed or that are not passed. These are the people that are influencing our lives. You may be familiar with this picture that was presented last year sometime when the Epstein files first started coming out. And big names that are either billionaires or policymakers or just talent, they were connected to Jeffrey Epstein through these files. That picture has Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Epstein, and Edward Snowden. Edward, who was given asylum in Russia for being a supposedly quote unquote whistleblower. Come to find out, he was possibly a spy. Now, he was possibly working with Epstein, and they were looking into him possibly being a hacker for Epstein. He worked for the National Security Agency. And there's a very large organization that protects not only our affairs at home, but also abroad. This deals with like international states and unions and countries and criminal organizations hacking into our work systems, Social Security, our treasury. So if Edward Snowden was compromised and he was working for Epstein and we didn't know that back then like we know now, that's not a good thing. Also too, how is it that Russia was so easy to give Edward Snowden this asylum? It's because Putin is also compromised in these Epstein files. Another thing, an article with the SWDL. What is transhumanism, and why do people associate it with eugenics? A primer on the philosophy popularized by Jeffrey Epstein, which encompasses immortal cyborgs, baby ranches, and parenting licenses.
How are they able to do it? How are they able to come up out of this from underground and do it? Or do they have
tunneling systems everywhere? They're being helped by the Greys, and also there are groups within the higher echelon that are actually helping them acquire this.
So human beings are abducting the kids and giving them to the Greys, who in turn give them to the Alpha Draconans?
That's right. That's part of the deal. They won't come up as long as we feed them down there. You understand? It's about human beings selling themselves out.
Why, aside from the carnivorous aspect to the Alpha Draconans, why else are they dangerous to humanity?
Because they don't like us.
And what are they willing to do with humanity?
Eat us.
They will eat us. If you look at my videos the past few weeks and months, I've talked about these demons, the spiritual world now starting to parallel with the political world and the esoteric. This man was very popular in these circles decades ago. He talked about how aliens are demonic forces that are now trying to go to the next level with their ultimate plan. Ultimate plan is to be the dominant ones on Earth.
Maybe do some work for them, but they don't need all of us to work for them. They don't respect human life in any way whatsoever.
They're going to try to...
The Bible in 1 Peter 5 and 8 says prowling the earth. The most frequent description is that he is actively roaming the earth, and that and he is what I'm meaning by the demonic realm, Satan. And he has his kingdom. The Bible says that we are dealing with kingdoms and dominions and principalities and rulers of darkness. They are now implemented into our government.
You can conquer. And whatever you do, please don't turn on each other. The enemy is underground. They're on the move.
The more closer and closer to the end times, and because we have access to the internet, AI, World Wide Web, and media and satellites, we're able to see these demonic forces behave in real time. And you're going to start seeing it now more openly. Just like this congresswoman from South Carolina. Now, she usually doesn't look like this, but I thought that was really strange in this last presidential State of the Union, and how she acted in that audience trying to get Donald Trump's attention. And, you know, you don't have to, these things don't have to be like independent aliens. They are called demonic spirits that enter into people that have to be cast out, and they can make you look completely different. They can shift your appearance and your behavior. She is about to spaz out.
Maybe even stepping in before tomorrow.
That President Trump has taken, and these people that he has put in his cabinet, they speak loud and clearly about what the American people want. And I think these judges trying to hold up the process is absolutely ridiculous.
In that short clip, she seemed like a very sensible person, whether you agree with her politics or not. She seemed pretty sensible. However, I believe she's walking around with something much heavier on her, in her atmosphere and within her realm, that she needs to look into. Let's now move on to the Litvak connection. This portion of the video, again, as always, I want to make sure that it's understood that this is not a video that is to bash the Jewish faith, the Hebrew faith, the Zionist belief. This is not for that. I'm only highlighting particular events that have happened in the past, historical and present, that are parallel within the current political state that we're in, and especially in relation to the current conflict that's going on in Iran between Israel and the United States. And Litvaks are Jews with origins in the historical Grand Duchy of Lithuania, encompassing modern Lithuania, Belarus, and Latvia. This is what you would consider the Ashkenazi Jewish community, based off of DNA genetic testing and their markers that are found on the map. Now, there is a whole back history behind this current modern day of Jews that live in Israel and the Zionist movement.
בכל העניינים, גם האישיים, גם הלאומיים. בזמן שישראל לאחרונה נתפסו כמה עניינים. פתחו כמה. מה שרואה עוד, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו. אז הייתה משהו ומה ידיעתו. ועושים. הכנראה שהיא מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר כמה שעות בגיל עדיין ליבו. אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום, בבשורות טובות. יש שמחה וטוב לבוא. כדי שחסידים מקפידים שכל עניינים שמחה. בשורות טובות, הצלחה רבה.
I thought it would be worth mentioning that a couple of decades later, President Trump would be paying homage to Rabbi Rebbe's grave. Few other noteworthy individuals that are high up in political influence: Rachel Maddow, the president of Mexico, the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the UK. A lot of these individuals are either descendants from or they are actual practicing Orthodox or a part of the Shabbat movement. And the Shabbat movement are many of these are Orthodox Jews, and they have these particular practices. Again, not for me to judge, just an observation. But the most important thing to mention is that they're very influential when it comes to politics, local governments, and now they have their guy here in the United States. And this is actually all moving accordingly to getting closer and closer to their so-called Messiah. Now, Jeffrey Epstein had a theory. And again, a lot of this is just to move towards the rebuilding of the third temple, the approaching of their Messiah. A lot of this has been studied. Jeffrey Epstein, in a email that was found in the files, pointed to Rh negative individuals, Gilgamesh, and what he felt was a correlation of all of this in regards to the Nephilim, aliens, or beings that are not of this world.
The modern paradigm would have you believe that red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, green eyes, and rhesus negative blood are mutations that arose out of nowhere. All legitimate royal families have rhesus negative blood, most of them also carrying R1BY DNA, which is from the Israelites who were created in the likeness of God. The rhesus negative bloodline is the purest representation of what the ancient Israelites would have been, and this is provable through not only prophecy, history, and genetics, but also through heraldry, which was given to them for the purpose that they may be identified in the end times. So, what is this rhesus negative blood? Rhesus negative blood is often called alien blood by scientists because it lacks the rhesus monkey blood antigen. 85% of the human population is Rh positive, with only 15% being Rh negative. And out of 612 primate species and subspecies recognized by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, not one of them has rhesus negative blood. Anthropologist and historian Robert Sepper has been bringing to light the fact that Cro-Magnon carried rhesus negative blood and for the last 30,000 years have remained nearly unchanged than average head size, heightened senses including vision, stronger than average immune systems, lower than average body temperature, blood pressure, and a low pulse rate, an extra ribber vertebrae, which some people compare to the Adam and Eve story. They also have extremely high rates of left-handedness, and it's speculated that left-handedness actually comes from the rhesus negative bloodline. And as you know, Hebrew is written right to left. Could it be because it's written by left-handed rhesus negatives? More traits of this bloodline is reddish or blonde hair, and green or blue eyes that change and are piercing because he kept his bloodline pure and intact and retained his belief in God. He kept his rhesus negative bloodline intact. And if you're skeptical, let me draw comparisons. You have the Israelites, claimed to be the seed of God, who write right to left and obtain all their blessings through their bloodline from Abraham, who makes a covenant with God, but has to keep his bloodline pure in order to maintain the blessings. He promised his descendants will fill the earth and establish many kinglines. Then you have this extremely rare blood type that comes with tons of extra conscious abilities and extremely rare phenotypes. You should know that geneticists compared mitochondrial DNA from blue-eyed individuals in countries as diverse as Jordan, Denmark, and Turkey, concluding that people with blue eyes have a single common ancestor that lived near the Black Sea area 8,000 years ago, spreading out with agriculture. The first blue-eyed humans were among the Proto-Indo-European Aryans, who subsequently spread agriculture into Western Europe and later rode horses into Iran and India. As you can see here, there are still traces of this lineage in Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, and India.
As he stated earlier, These characteristics and these physical traits are typically linked to people of royal descent, people with special bloodlines, of wealth, of lineages that go back very far to people who genetic traits in these Parcas giants in South America. Also, too, I made postings of the pictures in the beginning of these Egyptian mummies. Not all Egyptians that were white colored, European color, or look like they could have been Greek with red hair, and they're not Nubian or Kushite. I believe those were a mixture, an admixture of these beings from another realm. This is what AI depicted what the Antichrist could possibly come and look like. Very similar to like King Henry, Elizabeth I, Queen Mary, Elizabeth I's half-sister, Catherine of Aragon, Queen Henry's first wife. She was a redhead. A lot of their family in the Spanish royalty were redheads. Prince Harry is a redhead because Diana and the Spencers were redheads. Not all Rh negative bloodlines are redheads, because of course they're blondish, Scandinavian, Swedish, Viking looking people with blue eyes and also hazel eyes. But yes, so all of this is in line with each other. And these are just some other pieces of where Jeffrey Epstein was studying these things and was funding these types of genetic research studies. I mean, it's sick. And they really do believe that these things have something to do with the upcoming Antichrist and the Messiah.
Rh negative children, babies, adults have a significantly higher copper content than Rh positive blood types, which have iron. So I'll tell you, which have more iron content in the Rh positive. Copper conducts electricity, and copper conducts energy much faster than iron does. Iron's a little bit slower. So that would give somebody who had an Rh negative blood type explosive power. Very, very, very fast and intense, but then worn out.
Anyone that you know has Rh negative blood type, that is not a full human. They're very different. Their blood temperature is different. So I'm going to talk Fahrenheit here because I'm in America. But normal people, when you take your blood temperature, it's 98.6. So someone Rh negative, it's 96.8. They thrive on acidic foods and sugars. They remain healthy that way. It's almost impossible for them to get something like HIV or all the common strains of hepatitis and all that good stuff, because the immune systems aren't in the bloodstream. They're actually inside the red blood cells, so HIV
Across
can't
the
attack.
globe are other pockets where Rh negative blood clings to survival, forming a strange map that doesn't match anything we thought we knew about human migration. Scientists map Rh negative blood across the world. The pattern looks nothing like normal human migration. It doesn't spread evenly. It clusters and vanishes in strange places. In Eastern Europe, frequencies range between 15 and 30%, with hotspots in Ireland, Scotland, and the Basque Country. In North Africa, the Berber people show levels of 10 to 20%. In Western Asia, certain Jewish and Arab communities reach 10 to 25%.
And Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, who's a triple agent, MI6, KGB, Mossad, gatekeeping scientific discoveries through his control of journal publications via Pergamon Press. Pergamon Press, by the way, Pergamon is the place that was believed to have been the throne of Satan. And so his choosing that name is not at all incidental.
Jesus.
So
Well, I hope you're not that form of Satan.
Well, I want to unpack a very interesting point in relation to that.
Yeah.
An interesting and deeply disturbing point.
Yeah.
So Robert Maxwell was clearly involved in gatekeeping, and you would think some of the scientific journal publications some of the articles that had been submitted that he didn't allow to see the light of day, and that he sequestered and monopolized as part of his database would have had to do with propulsion breakthroughs and electrogravitics.
This is the Jesse Michaels Show online on YouTube, and they're now about to start talking about how Jeffrey Epstein primarily took over a mantle, per se, of Ghislaine Maxwell's late father with his interest in science and also in discovering different blood types and also the unidentified, the unknown realm. Same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. You're going to see how he expanded that, and they'll start talking more about the Rh negative blood types. Check out his podcast on YouTube and on other social media platforms when you Google him. Let's listen to some more of this conversation.
So, okay, Epstein is continuing some kind of research that Robert Maxwell was involved in that has to do with conquering gravity.
Do you think he was interested in electrogravitics specifically?
Yes. But here's the thing.
Well, what makes you think that?
Look, he was interested in gravity.
But that's I could explain that away. I could say that for the last 60 years, mainstream physics has been stuck on quantizing gravity and basically reconciling general relativity and quantum field theory. And he was just this generic science honeypot person. Or you could get into spookier territory, say he was into the Casimir effect, which I know he was. And then even crazier would be electrogravitics, because electrogravitics is a specific term around Thomas Townsend Brown's work.
I tell you why I think electrogravitics, but here's where it gets really much crazier.
Yeah.
And I have this in my piece, is that by all accounts, all of the young women involved in Epstein's compromat operations were, well, most of them were Nordic, and none of them were black or brown women. And this has been noted very clearly by people who were involved. They said he wasn't interested in them. And in particular, there are some women who, now you can question whether they're telling the truth or their veracity, but they claim that they were taken to Zorro Ranch specifically as part of a breeding program where Epstein intended to inseminate them with fetuses that had superior genetics. And he was involved in the evolutionary dynamics biology sub-program at Harvard. He had keycard access to that. Even after his first prosecution, he retained keycard access to a program at Harvard which is euphemistically involved with what we might call eugenic applications of emergent biotechnology.
Yeah.
Okay?
Hanging out with Robert Trivers, top evolutionary biologist.
Yes, and George Church, transhumanist. And so Epstein is trying to create eugenically enhanced Nordic people at Zorro Ranch. Meanwhile, here's where it gets really creepy. The aides who worked for Ghislaine Maxwell, she had these live-in male aides at her apartment in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, at her townhouse. And these male aides were all from Sweden. This one of them wrote an article about it. I cited in my piece on my Substack. And he says, I asked her, like, what's it with you and like Swedish people? Like, she's like, no, I've never even been to Sweden. But she would bring these guys on 3-month tourist visas, uniquely from Sweden. They were all like good-looking blonde guys. And the guy who wrote this article said, I would notice that whenever like my hair had fallen in the bed sheets or in the bathroom, it would all be cleaned up.
What?
So his hair was being retrieved, Gattaca style.
What?
From his living quarters in Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse. Okay? So it wasn't just young women. She had competent male aides whose genetic material was also being collected as part of some project. So that, to me, is a second data point. This fixation with Nordics and eugenic uses of biotechnology that then spins Epstein's interest in gravity in the direction of, the UFO phenomenon, electrogravitics,
He's interested in these Nordics and their connection to UFOs. That's a speculation.
It's interesting. Well, who knows?
With different languages, so he took on different names. These are just some of the names that he became known by: Gilgamesh, Orion, Apollo, and Osiris. In the case of Gilgamesh, he's 1/3 man, 2/3 God. Well, 2/3 of 100 is what? 66.6%.